So the idea of the Vitruvian Man was probably discussed in 1490, when a small group of travelers set off from Milan, heading south toward the town of Pavia. Now, among these people were two men personally chosen by Ludovico Sforza, the Duke of Milan, a powerful ruler known for his grand ambitions and architectural projects. Now, one of his latest endeavors was to build a new cathedral in Pavia, and he wanted advice from the finest minds. So, the first man that he called upon for this task was the most respected architect in all of Italy, Francesco di Giorgio Martini, an engineer celebrated not just for his buildings, but also for his remarkable drawings and written works, which were being copied and studied all across the country. Now, the second man, however, was a far more unusual choice. He wasn't a trained architect. In fact, he was better known for his skills in paintings and drawings. In the Duke's letter, he was simply referred to as Master Leonardo of Florence. Now, if you ask anyone at the time which of these two men would be remembered centuries later, the answer would seem obvious. Surely it would be Francesco. He was already a legend in the world of architecture, an expert sought after by cities all across Italy. At this time, his influence was unmatched. But as we now know, history had a surprising plan, because the quiet artist that was traveling beside him would go on to leave a greater mark, far better than anyone could have imagined. And it all started here, on this road to Pavia. Because during their time together, it's very likely that Francesco shared ideas from his personal manuscript, an ambitious treatise on architecture, engineering, and military art. These ideas would greatly inspire Leonardo and help shape the person he was about to be. Later, this very manuscript would also end up in Leonardo's hands. It was a rare copy, full of drawings and handwritten notes. Now, interestingly, at the beginning of this treatise, Francesco opened with a bold idea. Man, called the little world, contains within himself all the general perfections of the universe. Now, this sentence sounds poetic, maybe even mystical. But Francesco did not come up with this idea by himself. He was actually referencing a Roman architect who had lived over 1500 years ago. This is who the Vitruvian Man was named after: Marcus Vitruvius Pollio. Vitruvius wasn't a famous figure in his own time. He was an engineer in the Roman army, quietly serving under the command of Julius Caesar and other generals. He was a man behind the scenes, planning military camps, designing machines, and helping to build new towns in the far corners of Roman control. However, as the Roman Empire grew in power, it was the emperors and commanders who claimed the glory. Men like Vitruvius were left behind in the shadows. As years went by, Vitruvius became increasingly disappointed. He had dedicated his life serving Rome, yet no one knew his name. He wanted to be remembered, not just as a builder, but as a thinker. So, around 25 BCE, when Augustus Caesar came to power, Vitruvius began to write. He wanted to create a collection of manuscripts as a gift that could serve the Roman Empire, hoping Augustus would give him the recognition that he really wanted. He called his writings the 10 Books on Architecture. Now, at first glance, these books seem straightforward. It looks like a practical guide to building roads, bridges, theaters, and temples. But hiding within the pages was something greater. So, Vitruvius believed that the true builder should be trained in many fields, not just in numbers and shapes, but also philosophy, medicine, and even astronomy. Because being a builder in its highest form wasn't just about laying stones on the ground. It was about aligning human creation with the natural order, shaping civilization to reflect the same harmony that governs the universe. Now, interestingly, to explain this harmony, Vitruvius turned to two fundamental shapes, the circle and the square. Because in philosophy at the time, the circle symbolized the eternal, divine, infinite, and perfect. On the other hand, the square, grounded in symmetry, stood for stability, human effort, and the structured order of the material world. Then, Vitruvius took these ideas further, suggesting that this harmony doesn't just define the universe, but also the human body. First, he proposed that the human form, with its symmetrical proportions, could be measured like a building. It was structured, balanced, and precise, as if they were built according to a plan. So, Vitruvius described the body in mathematical detail: the length of a foot, the span of the arms, the distance from the navel to the crown of the head. But then, almost in passing, he added something strange. He wrote that the human body is so well designed by nature that the center of the body is at the navel. And if the perfect man lies flat on the ground with the arms and legs outstretched, and a compass is centered at his navel, a circle drawn around him will touch the hands and feet. Similarly, if the distance from the bottom of the feet to the top of the head is measured and applied to the outstretched arm, the width will equal the height, forming a square. And so, a perfect body could fit both a circle and a square. Now, with this passage, Vitruvius wasn't just playing around with a geometric idea. He was actually expressing a belief shared by many in his time, that man is a microcosm, a little world, shaped by the same rules that govern the entire universe. It was a symbolic vision, but there was a problem. Vitruvius only gave a description. He never included a drawing to prove his point. Perhaps he tried to draw it but failed. The idea sounds simple, but trying to fit a human body in both a circle and a square is far more difficult than it might seem. So, what Vitruvius left behind became more like a riddle, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Now, at the time, Vitruvius had dedicated the 10 books to Augustus Caesar. Vitruvius did receive some recognition, but the legacy that he wanted never truly came. His name slowly faded, and his work was set aside. However, his ideas would later turn into something completely unexpected. As centuries went by, the Roman Empire began to crumble. Cities broke apart, the old gods were abandoned. The world that Vitruvius used to know slowly disappeared. But in its place, a new kind of faith began to grow. In the quiet monasteries, monks began copying historical texts, trying to preserve fragments of a forgotten past. Now, in the Middle Ages, to copy a book was very difficult. It was slow, meticulous work, so anything that is worth preserving had to be something valuable. Yet, strangely, one of the manuscripts they chose to copy was the 10 books of architecture. But they are not preserving it for its practical guides on building structures, but for the passage that seems to hold spiritual meaning. It was the description of the perfect man, a figure arms and legs outstretched, placed inside both a circle and a square, perfectly proportioned and perfectly balanced. And to the monks, he sounded familiar. A divine figure stretched wide, a body that mirrored the cosmos. The Son of God, holding the world together. And so, the Romans' blueprint for building structures became a reflection of the divine. By the 15th century, the 10 books had made their way back to Italy. And one of the architects who took them seriously was Francesco di Giorgio Martini. Now, Francesco didn't just read Vitruvius, he tried to bring those ideas to life. Vitruvius had written that the builder should be trained in many skills, so Francesco took that to heart and began to write his own project, an ambitious treatise on architecture, engineering, and military art. It was a massive work inspired by Vitruvian thought, with inclusions of Vitruvius' ideas into the world of his time. In doing so, Francesco became more than just a builder. He became a thinker, one of the earliest respected figures of the Renaissance. Now, in his treatise, Francesco opened with a bold idea. Man, called the little world, contains within himself all the general perfections of the universe. Now, to Francesco, this wasn't just poetry, it was a design principle. And Francesco did not stop with just descriptions. He believed the ideas needed to be seen to be truly understood. So, he filled the pages with drawings, machines, buildings, and human figures, all meant to show that everything followed the natural proportions of the human body. In one drawing, Francesco even compared the human face to architecture, showing how the brow, nose, and jaw could mirror moldings, cornices, and columns. Like Vitruvius, Francesco believed that good design should follow the laws of nature, a pattern written in both flesh and stone. However, despite his efforts, Francesco couldn't solve the geometric riddle Vitruvius had left behind. How do you fit a perfect man in both a circle and a square? For over 1500 years, many kept trying, but no one got it right. Because the challenge wasn't just artistic, it was mathematical. The human body can't quite fit into both shapes at the same time. The geometry doesn't seem to make sense. It became like a visual puzzle, waiting to be solved, waiting for the right mind. In 1490, Leonardo da Vinci found himself traveling alongside Francesco, both of them working together on a project for the Duke of Milan. Along the road to Pavia, it's very likely that the Vitruvian Puzzle was discussed along the journey. Now, there's no official record of what they really talked about, but we do know that Leonardo da Vinci later owned a rare copy of the treatise made by Francesco, full of notes written in his own hand. So we can be sure that Leonardo has studied the book closely, and the question that Francesco had about Vitruvius, proportion, and the divine order became Leonardo's as well. It must have played an impact in shaping Leonardo's thought, because shortly after, Leonardo da Vinci solved the puzzle and created his own version of the Vitruvian Man. Leonardo drew the figure on a simple piece of paper, not much bigger than the one we use today. He likely began with the square and the circle, using a compass to mark the points. Then he added the figure, carefully fitted within both shapes. And above and below, 2 blocks of text written backwards. It was his signature script, written reverse from right to left. These notes describe the proportions of the human body, partly based on Vitruvius. He began with the old measurements: 4 fingers make a palm, 4 palms make a foot, 6 palms a cubit, 24 palms the full height of a man. Then he goes further, measuring the arms, the legs, the face, and the hands. But Vitruvius never went that far. Of the 22 measurements that Leonardo had included, only about half came from Vitruvius. The rest came from Leonardo himself. Years of studies, sketches, dissections, and notes. Leonardo wasn't just copying Vitruvius, he was refining them, observing and measuring what he saw. However, one puzzle still remained. How do you place a man inside both a circle and a square, when the human body doesn't seem to fit naturally within both shapes? Well, the problem was that the navel isn't the true center of the body. A square drawn from the same point throws everything off. Francesco had tried, so had others. The geometry never quite worked. But Leonardo found a clever solution. He shifted the square downward, so that the both shapes no longer share the center. The navel became the center of the circle, while the genitals the center of the square. It was a compromise and a revelation. Vitruvius never said that the shapes had to share the center, and Leonardo found a way to make it work. And even the smallest details can carry purpose. The figure's left foot was turned slightly outward. At the time, side views of the foot were often used as a basic unit of measurement. Leonardo didn't draw it off to the side. He added into the figure itself. Every part of the drawing was done with intention. Nothing was left to chance. Within a single image, Leonardo brought together science, art, geometry, and a vision shaped by centuries of thought. It was an idea passed down through generations, from Vitruvius to Francesco to Leonardo, each one asking the same question: how do we fit into the world? Over time, the Vitruvian Man has come to represent many things: balance, beauty, and knowledge. But perhaps its greatest meaning is something much more simple: our own curiosity, and a constant act of searching, learning, and trying to understand.